Hello and welcome to Tap That MTG, the show where we tell you everything we know about Magic the Gathering that's probably wrong, but fun to talk about. I'm Leslie.
And I'm Shauna.
Today we are going to bring you another Precon deep dive. In this video, we're going to break it down for you, tell you about all the cards in the deck, talk to you about what it's meant to do and how to play it wisely. And if you wait until the end, we will offer you some suggestions for tweaking the deck and make it even better, in our opinion. Without further ado, Shauna, what is this deck that we're talking about and what's it meant to do?
All right. Well, this deck is called Legends Legacy. It is a deck that's all about getting as many legendary creatures and things out as you can so you can run over your opponents. It's very fun. And it is in one of my favorite color groupings to play, which is red, white, and black, which is called Mardu, I think. I hope that's right. Mardu.
We'll say that.
We'll say that, and you can correct it in the comments. Okay. So this deck has the main commander that they are suggesting is a planeswalker, and planeswalkers can't normally be your commanders, but this one is one of those ones that says on the bottom that it can be your commander. So you can use this as your commander. Dihada, Binder of Wills. This is a scary little strange witch-like creature, planeswalker, that says that when you her +2, she is a 5. I'm just going to make this a little bigger so I can see it. +5 or +2, sorry, on the 5 is up to 1 target legendary creature gains vigilance, lifelink, and indestructible until your next turn. And reveal what? And destructible.
And indestructible.
Oh my gosh, you get all those things. All of the above. Woohoo! It's -3 is reveal the top 4 cards of your library, put any number of legendary cards from among them into your hand, and the rest into your graveyard. Create a treasure token for each card put into your graveyard that way. So even though you're getting rid of it, you get to have a treasure. And -11, you get to gain control of all non-land permanents until end of turn. I'm taking everything. I get to untap them, and I'm going to give them haste, and I'm going to kill you.
Oh, that's so fun.
Just mean. So this deck is all about being mean, which would be kind of fun. Then we have the Shaned Sleeper's Scourge is another legendary one you can use, a human knight. That's a 2/4 with menace. Same cost on that one, and other legendary creatures you control have menace. Whenever you play a legendary land or cast a legendary spell, you draw a card and lose a life. I don't care if I lose a life if I get to draw a card. Why not? Woohoo! So that is our commanders. And Leslie's going to tell you a little bit about how this deck is broken down.
So when we look at the guts and we rip it open, we can see its mana curve. We have 4 at 0 to 1, 2 at 2 mana cost, 3 mana cost is 20, 16 at 4, 5 at 5, and 6 at 6+. So this is actually right on par for most good commander decks. This is the kind of curve you want to see. A lot of 3 mana cost things, which will help with the most of those are going to be like your mana rocks and stuff like that and ramp. And then your 4 mana costs are kind of going to be your legendary creatures. So good to see. As far as colors go, it's fairly evenly spread amongst all the colors. 12 white, 10 red, and 8 black. And then we have 14 multicolor cards. And then we have 17 colorless, which is pretty high. And why is that? That's because we have some artifact creatures. And we have a nice little card in here that we'll talk about when we get into some of the high impact that untaps when you play an historic card. We'll get into what that means as we go. Card types, of course, we have 1 planeswalker. We have 28 creatures, 14 instants and sorceries, only 1 enchantment, and 17 artifacts. All those colorless cards. So let's see how this stacks up against our formula. Formula, you say? What is that all about, Shauna?
So we like to build decks based on a little formula that Leslie found a long time ago. Wizard seems to follow this formula most of the time, except when they're doing these kind of theme sort of decks. It's got the commander, of course, and the ramp. That's your mana stuff. That's 15 removal, and some about 13 cards that draw you cards or scrying. And then we have 12 high impact cards. Those are the cards that are going to win you the game if they don't deal with them. And then we've got about 10 in the other supporting type cards that help you win the game or that fit the theme or just fun to play kinds of cards. And then about 34 land. And Wizards usually gives you more land than the 34, but we'll talk about that later.
Mm-hmm. And one more thing about that is that this formula too, most of those categories can fluctuate 3 to 4,
Sure.
5 to 6 cards, and you'll still be right on par. It's more just about you should have you don't want only 2 ramp cards in your deck. You don't want only 2 removal cards. So this gives you a good starting point.
Yeah.
And our first category is ramp and mana generators. Formula, of course, calls for 15, as we just talked about. Our deck has 11, so again, we're right on par. The first one is Captain Lannery Storm for 2 and a red. It's a nice little 2/2 with haste, and when it attacks, you get to create a colorless treasure artifact token that you can basically sacrifice for any color of mana you want. And whenever you sacrifice a treasure, Captain Lannery Storm gets +1/+0 until the end of turn. So later on, you can make it bigger while you attack and get more treasure tokens.
Nice. We've got some three little mana rocks, they're called, here for you. Commander Sphere is in here. It's for 3. It can tap and add any mana or 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity, and you can sacrifice it later on when you're done with that to draw a card, which is really handy. Then of course we have Arcane Signet, which has been included in many of these decks. It's a new card, relatively new. It's for 2. It just taps for any mana of any color that your commander can produce for you. And Felwar Stone is for 2, and you can add any color of land your opponents control, which is could be helpful to you as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And we have 3 monuments in this deck. So the monuments came out with Hour of Devastation, I believe, or Amonkhet, or one of those 2. So Hazoret's monument, Bantu's monument, and Oketra's monument. Hazoret's lets your red spells cost 1 less. Bantu, black spells cost 1 less, and Oketra, white spells cost 1 less. And whenever you cast a creature spell, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. That's for Hazoret. Bantu allows you to lose a life and gain, or sorry, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life when you play black spells. And then our white spells give us little kitty cat tokens, warrior creature tokens with vigilance. They should give us kitty cat warrior creature tokens because Oketra, but you know, it's just whatever creature tokens.
Then there's the good old Hedron Archive, which is for 4. It adds 2 colorless, and you can pay 2 and sacrifice it to draw 2 cards later on. So a lot of people like that card in their commander decks too.
Mm-hmm. And then we have another 2 kind of basic mana rocks. Soul Ring is our first one. It just taps for 2. It's in a lot of commander decks, not the other one though, interestingly enough. And then one that I had never seen before because I haven't been around Magic that long, but Honor Sworn Shaku for 3. You can tap it and add 1 mana to your mana pool. That's of course colorless. But you can tap an untapped legendary permanent you control to untap this card. So you can tap it once, tap a legendary, untap it, and just keep tapping it and tap all your legendary creatures to get the mana you need if there's something that you need it for. So there's some interesting things you can do with this. You probably won't do that in most games though.
Yeah. Then we have this interesting Reaver Cleaver, a artifact equipment that's for 2 and a red that says equipped creature has +1/+1, has trample. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or players will create that many treasure tokens. So that could be really quite a few treasures.
Mm-hmm. That
equipped cost us 3 on that one. That's new totally. Okay. There you go.
And then we move on to our next section, which, as we always say, is one of our favorites, removal. Now, this deck is pretty shy on the removal, but we'll get into why. There's a reason for it. I think if you were going to add some removal, that would be okay. Formula calls for 15. Deck has 8. Ashleen the Pilgrim is the first one. It's a 1/1 and it costs 2 to play. And then you can pay 2 and put a 1/1 counter on it. If this is the third time this ability has resolved this turn, remove all 1/1 counters from it, and it deals that much damage to each creature and each player. So if you do that 3 times, you remove all the counters and do 3 damage to everybody, all creatures and all players.
It's insane. Then we have Urza's Ruinous Blast. It is a 4 and a white legendary sorcery. So it's legendary, but it's a sorcery. But you can only cast it if you have a legendary creature or planeswalker out in the battlefield, which you probably will in this deck. And it says exile all non-land permanents that aren't legendary. Goodbye, everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great card for this deck.
Yeah.
Kai's Wrath. For 2 white and 2 black, destroy all creatures. You gain life equal to the number of creatures that you control that were destroyed this way. This deck has a lot of tokens. Once we get into that, you'll see that. So there could be potential for you to gain a whole bunch of life while you do the board wipe. So that's a good thing.
And then we have Bedevil, which is for 2 black and a red. Little instant that says destroy target artifact, creature, or planeswalker. Use that one a lot.
And then I always love a deck that allows you to give someone a gift to destroy target permanent. Its controller gets a 3/3 green elephant creature token. And target permanent is great because that can be any permanent, including land.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Hero's Downfall for 1 and 2 black. It is an instant that says destroy target creature or planeswalker. Simple. Get rid of it. Bye.
In fact, it's quite mortifying, which is our next card, Mortify, for 1 and a black and a white. Destroy target creature or enchantment.
Instant speed removal. Then we have this card called Wear and Tear. Basically, you have to choose which side you want to play. If it's 1 in the red, you want to play the destroy target artifact, or if it's just a white, to the Tear side, you're going to destroy target enchantment. So it depends what you need. You've got some options there.
This card actually has Fuse on it.
Fuse?
So if we turn it sideways, we can see Fuse. You may cast 1 or both.
Didn't see
these.
that.
Yes, not all those split cards have Fuse. So this one, I was actually, when I was pulling the cards in, I was reading, trying to remind myself about split cards and whether you could cast them both. And then I was like, what? Oh yeah, it has Fuse. So I didn't know this until today either. So if you decide, then you can pay the red and the white and the other color and do both sides.
Nice. I did not know that. So there's your tip, gang. Nice.
Fun facts of today. Card draw on tutors is our next category. Formula calls for 13. This deck has 8. So again, it's a bit low on the card draw, but some of our mana generators had card draw, so that might make up for that. Kothafed, the Soul Hoarder, is our first one for 6. It's a 6/6 flyer, so it's already pretty good being flying 6/6. Whenever a permanent owned by another player is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you get to draw a card and lose a life. That could be bad for you, but it could also be very good if you just kill them really fast with this nice little flyer that's helping you draw cards.
Yes, you want to do that. Neheb, the Dreadhorde champion. This is from War of the Spark, a 5/4 for 4, 2 and 2 red, has trample, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you may discard any number of cards. If you do, draw that many cards and add that much red mana. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. So there you can wheel your hand and get some different cards and have some more mana so you can play those cards. It's really great.
And Faithless Looting, typical, just basic, 1 mana, draw 2 cards, which is a great value. You do have to discard 2 cards, but it has flashback, which means that you can cast it from the graveyard as well. And if you cast it for its flashback cost, then you have to exile it. So, you only get that once. You can't just keep doing it.
Yeah. Night's Whisper for 1 and a black. It's a sorcery that says you can draw 2 cards, but you lose 2 life. That's okay by me.
Read the Bones has been around for a long time if you've been playing Magic for a while. But if you're new, Read the Bones is 2 and a black, and you can scry 2, then draw 2 cards, and you lose 2 life. So if you're not sure what scrying is, basically you get to look at the top 2 cards of your library because it's 2 scry 2. You can decide if you want to keep them there, if you want to put them on the bottom of your library, and you can decide one at a time. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Ambitions cost. It is for 3 and a black. You draw 3 cards and you lose 3 life, but 3 cards is a lot.
Mm-hmm. Thrill of Possibility, and as an additional cost to cast this spell, you have to discard a card, but you get to draw 2. So that's okay.
Yeah. And here's the other commander, Shanid, Sleeper's Scourge for the Mardu and 1, 2/4 menace, and other legendary creatures have that menace. So you'd have quite a bit of card draw if you had this as your commander, right? You'd have a lot. Mm-hmm. You're going to be losing life, but that's okay. You're going to try to gain some life too.
Yeah. And here's how. So we're on to our high impact cards. Here's the fun part. Their formula calls for 12. This deck, in our opinion, has 14. And ooh, are they doozies. So Odric, Lunarch Marshal for 4 is a 3/3. At the beginning of each combat, creatures you control gain first strike until the end of turn if your creature has first strike. The same is true for flying, death touch, double strike, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, skulk, trample, and vigilance. So basically, whatever one of your creatures has, all of your creatures have it. Which is great if you have this next card out on the battlefield.
Zetalpa, the Primal Dawn. Who doesn't love Zetalpa? For 6 and 2 white, 4/8. I don't, because he hurts me so many times. This is the kids play this one against me all the time. I'm like, darn it, come on! Elder Dinosaur with flying, double strike, vigilance, trample, and indestructible. So once they get that card out, I usually die.
Yeah. Well, if they have Zetalpa and Odric out, suddenly all of your stuff has flying, vigilance, trample, and indestructible.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, double strike isn't written on Odric, so it doesn't transfer over.
Too bad.
Too bad, right? But, the whole, all we need is lifelink now. Drana, Liberator of Malachar for 1 and 2 black is a 2/3 with flying and first strike. Lifelink. Yeah, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you get to put a 1/1 counter on each attacking creature you control. So this deck is meant to have lots of things attacking really, really fast. It's a very aggressive deck, and you're going to just keep making them bigger because you've attacked with them. So if you have drawn out.
And a little tip about Drana. So because she has first strike, I had to learn this. Because she has first strike, she hits first. So she deals that combat damage to the player first. So then you would get counters on everybody after that point. So before the other ones do their damage, they have a counter on them. Mm-hmm. I did not know that until recently. That they get buffed before they actually hit.
Yeah, because of her first strike. Timing is everything.
Exactly.
Read your cards.
Read your cards. I did not know that. Then we have a Tally Primal Storm for 4 and 2 red. It's a 6/6 that everybody loves to hate. The beautiful Elder Dinosaur that whenever it attacks, everyone exiles the top card of their library. And you can cast any number of those cards from among them without paying their mana costs. So yeah, let me have all your good stuff that's sitting on top of your library. Why not? Some land.
And that's another one that timing matters because it's when it attacks you get to do that. So before any of the combat damage happens, you get to look at those cards, which might be great because you might get to remove something of theirs or tap something of theirs or put another creature out, that type of thing. So
yeah.
Giselle Goldmane for 2 and 2 white is a 4/4 with first strike. And this one has that you can pay 5, 3 and 2 white, so that attacking creatures you control get +X until the end of turn, where X is the number of attacking creatures. So similar to Drana, you attack with a whole bunch of stuff, pay 5, and give them all, I don't know, if you're attacking with 10 things, they all get 10/10.
Yeah. So you're seeing kind of the theme here. You're not going to be sitting doing nothing on your turn.
Attack.
You're going to be attacking. The Tajik Blade of the Legion, a 2/2 for 2 and a red and a white. That seems a little steep, but he's indestructible. And he has Battalion, which says whenever it and at least 2 other creatures attack, he gets +5/+5 until end of turn. You're going to be swinging lots. He's going to
Mm-hmm.
be huge.
Yeah.
Indestructible.
Teshar, Ancestors Apostle for 4 is a 2/2. Again, why so steep? Because whenever you cast a historic spell, return target creature card with a mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Now, remember, we looked at our mana curve. We had lots of 3 mana cost permanents, which is great. And so, historic cards are artifacts, legendaries, and sagas. So pretty much every single thing in this deck is going to trigger this card.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I've always used to forget about the legendary piece on that. Traxos, the Scourge of Krug. It's a 7/7 for 4. What? It has trample even. But he enters the battlefield tapped and doesn't untap during your untap step. But when you cast a historic spell, which we just discussed, you get to untap him. So, yeah, who cares?
And it's not too often our instants and sorceries make it into our high impact, but this one for
Yeah.
sure. Not only is it a nice little graveyard recursion, it's a legendary sorcery, so it fits with casting legendary spells. Primeval's Glorious Rebirth. Return all legendary permanent cards from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Do. So you're discarded
Yeah.
some, so you can bring them out. Why not?
Why not? If someone does a
Plan
board
for
wipe,
that. Yep.
you got it.
Unbreakable Formation. This is going to win you the game at the last instant for 2 and a white. It has done for me. It's instant that says creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. And if you happen to cast it during your main phase, you get to put a 1/1 counter on each of those creatures. And they gain vigilance until end of turn. So you might play it as a combat trick. You might play it with them seeing it coming, and then they might concede as soon as you do that.
Yeah, normally instants are for combat, and this one for sure. But
Yeah.
remember, like Drana and Tajik and the other one, the cat one that gives +X/+X. Do that all at once, hopefully, and then cast this one, and you've pretty much trampled over everyone and won the game, right?
Yeah.
Heroes Podium, a legendary artifact for 5. Each legendary creature you control gets +1/+1 for each other legendary creature you control. So that is just kind of crazy. Good synergy for this deck. You can also pay X and tap it to look at the top X cards of your library, reveal a legendary creature card from among them, and put it on into your hand. Put the rest at your bottom of your library in random order. So not only does it super buff up your stuff, it has that scry, that card tutoring, which again we were a little low on up above, so that helps with that.
Circle of Loyalty for 4 and 2 white. It is a legendary artifact that says this spell costs 1 less to cast for each knight you control. There aren't a ton of knights in this, but that's okay. It's only 6. And creatures you control get +1/+1. Again, you have lots of creatures. And whenever you cast a legendary spell, you get to make knights. And they have vigilance, so that's pretty awesome. Or you could pay and make a knight as well. So
yeah. So
knights everywhere.
Knights everywhere. Bladewing Deathless Tyrant is a legendary creature skeleton. So this is one of the first new ones that's made just for this deck. It has flying, it has haste, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, for each creature card in your graveyard, you get to create a 2/2 black zombie knight creature token with menace. Which means if it stays out, each time it does combat damage, you get to recount those creatures and make zombies. So you just keep getting more and more value from the stuff in your graveyard. That's awesome.
So you could have a lot of knights out to play that loyalty card.
Exactly.
Cadric Soul Kindler for 2 and a red and a white, a 4/3, and it says he's a dwarf. It says the legend rule does not apply to tokens you control. Whenever another non-token legendary permanent enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. And if you do, you get to create a token that's a copy of it. That token gains haste, and then you have to sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. But you could make another Bladewing, and wouldn't that be fun?
So what's the legend rule?
The legend rule is that I cannot have 2 Bladewing Deathless Tyrants out because it's legendary. If I happen to have one, I would have to sacrifice it unless I have a card like that one. So, yeah.
So if you were going to make a copy of something that was legendary, then one of them would die as soon as the other one hits the battlefield. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Other cards on theme: win conditions and specialty cards. So this is where most of the cards ended up in this deck. They're ones that will support your overall deck theme, to which they do very well. Formula calls for 10. This deck has 19. So the first one is Adriana, Captain of the Guard, for 5. She's a 4/4. She has melee, which means that whenever this creature attacks, it gets +1/+1 until the end of turn for each opponent you attacked with a creature card this combat. So you want to attack at everyone all at once.
Yeah.
Other creatures you control have melee. So this deck has a lot of other creatures you control have, or other legendary creatures you control have. So you want everything to have all of the same keywords and just be super big and beefy and do weird things, which will make it hard. Sorry, I'm talking a lot. As an aside, this is going to be a deck that you're going to have to take your time and remember your triggers, because I mean, even me as a seasoned player, I'm going to forget so many things when I play this deck. Oh yeah, this one has melee, so technically they all have this. So just take your time.
Yeah, it feels like you're going to be playing a fast deck because it's so aggressive, but you have a lot of stuff to remember. And I've played a lot of these kinds of decks, and they're very fun to play for sure. You're challenged and awake the whole game because you're having to remember everything. But definitely, take your time and have some fun with it.
Yeah.
This deck is full of really, really good legendary creatures that are just do a lot of good stuff, like Alicia, who smiles at death. This one is the 3/2 first strike. When she attacks or they attack, you may pay the white and the black hybrid mana, and if you do, you get to return target creature card with power 2 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield, tapped and attacking. So really, really good at getting more of your creatures back from the dead.
And Anafenza might be one of those, because she only costs 2, and she's a kin tree spirit. When another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get to bolster. So basically what that means is you just get to choose the creature that has the lowest toughness among all the creatures, and you get to put a 1/1 counter on it. So when she comes in, or when any creature enters the battlefield that's not a token, the lowest one gets a counter.
Then we have our pouty vampire here, Arvad the Cursed. He's a vampire knight, so he helps with your knight count. 3/3 Death Touch Lifelinker, and other legendary creatures you control get +2/+2. He doesn't get it, but they do, so that's why he's pouting in the corner. But he has lifelink.
Maybe he's stoically thinking about what to cook for dinner.
Maybe.
Bill Borsa, or Borka, Spectral Sergeant, for 2 and a red and a white, is a X5. So when it comes in, you note the converted mana cost of each card as it is put into exile. What does that mean? Well, Bell Borka, Spectral Sergeant's power is equal to the greatest number noted for this turn. And then it has the explanation of what that all means. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library, and you may play that card this turn. So you're going to exile something at the very beginning of your upkeep. You're going to have a little note next to him. You're going to note that mana cost, and mana cost, and that is his power. And this one has a flip, I believe. Is the flip the Garnet of the Blood Flame? Can't remember.
Does he have a flip?
No. Doesn't he? What is this arrows on the other side of his
I don't think so.
Okay, moving on.
Don't think it does. Garnet the Blood Flame. It's a 3/3 for 3, a black and a red, a human warrior that has flash. And when it enters the battlefield, return to your hand all creature cards in your graveyard that were put there from anywhere this turn. And other creatures you control have haste. So, yeah, that's a great one to play on their turn when they've killed a bunch of your stuff. You're going to put that in there and get your creatures back. Why not?
Mm-hmm. And we have some more tokens coming at you. Jasu Vest,
Woohoo!
Lich Knight for 2 and 2 black is a 4/5. He has kicker cost of 5 and a black, which I'll explain in
It's
a
a lot.
second. He has Menache, you might hear about that means menace, which means he has to be blocked by at least 2 creatures. And when he enters the battlefield, if he kicked it, then you get to create 8, count them, 8 2/2 black
Woohoo!
zombie knight creature tokens, also with menace.
Yep.
So I say it would be worth it. I mean, unless you need to get something out because it's turn 4 and you just need to
Yeah.
get something out because everyone's going really fast, I would wait until you have 6 to play this. And then you have a much better board to block with, anyways.
It's
2 more
actually
turns.
10. You would need 10. 10 total.
Oh, right. That's the additional
Yeah.
cost. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah. Yeah.
But you're
But
making some
still,
treasures. Hopefully, you're making
yeah,
some treasures that you can use.
you're making all
Carrie
kinds of
Zeb,
things.
a Skyship Raider, 1/3 for 1 in the red, and it has first strike and menace. Whenever she attacks, you get to create Ragavan, a legendary 2/1 little red monkey that enters the battlefield tapped and attacking as well, and then it exiles at the end of turn. So it's actually really helpful. Extra attacker.
Yeah. And tokens. Cranko, Tin Street Kingpin. When he attacks, you get to put a 1/1 counter on him. Then you create a number of 1/1 goblin creature tokens equal to Cranko's power. So he's just going to keep getting bigger as he attacks, and you're just going to keep creating more goblins, and all will be good in the world.
Then we have the Black Blade Reforge, which is a wonderful little equipment that costs 2. An equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each land you control, and your equipment cost for legendaries is only 3. Other things it's 7, but that might be something useful that will really make your legendary creatures bigger.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's got that. Normally, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of equipment in commander decks, but because this one equips to your legendary creature for 3 and all your
Mm-hmm.
creatures are legendary, then it's maybe good.
Yeah.
Same with Hero's Blade for 2. Equipped creature gets +3/+2, which is okay, I guess. However, whenever a legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may have Hero's Blade attached to it. So if you are tired of it being on one creature and you just play a new one, you're like, you know what, I'm going to put Hero's Blade on this guy instead. So that's kind of a nice thing.
Yeah, and Sword of the Chosen, it's a 2 mana cost, and you can tap it and give one of your legendary creatures a +2/+2. So it's not really an equipment attached to it; it's just kind of sitting there helping it out.
Yeah. Like an artifact.
Yeah,
Or it is an artifact, like an
yeah,
enchantment.
yeah.
Tanza Godo's Maul is for 3. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 as long as it's
Weird.
legendary, which it will be. It gets an additional +2/+2, so it's actually +3
Oh,
+3 as long as as long as it's red. It also has trample, so there might be some really good
red with
ones to
trample.
put this on. An extra 4 or an extra 3/3 with trample, and it only costs 1 to equip. So.
Yeah, kind of crazy. Day of Destiny for 3 and a white. It's a legendary enchantment that says legendary creatures you control get +2/+2. There's a little enchantment that you put up there.
So this next one we put in other cards on theme because it is a bit conditional, but it has the potential. It's a new card to be very, very high impact. So Zerum Golden Wind, flying 3/4. Whenever a griffin you control deals combat damage to a player, you get to create a white griffin creature token with flying. Now you have 2 griffins. When each of those does combat damage, they each create another 2/2 white griffin, and you're basically going to continue to double those as long as you're able to get in.
Mm-hmm.
Conditionally, though, if you're playing against another deck that has a lot of flyers that can block or something like that, then he's going to be just kind of sitting there waiting for the dream to happen, as we talked about in our
That's
review.
right. Yeah. Gerard's Hourglass Pendant. It's for 1. I believe this is one of the new cards, Leslie.
Yep.
It is a legendary artifact that has flash. So if a player would begin an extra turn, that player skips that turn instead. So wouldn't that be nice to stop them in their damn extra turns, guys? Like, really? You can pay 4 and tap it and exile this pendant. Return to the battlefield tapped. Return to the battlefield tapped all artifact, creature, enchantment, and land cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn. Whew, that's a toughie, but it helps you get all your stuff back when they've gotten rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yeah. And just sits
You're
there
covered.
waiting for you to need it.
Yeah.
Moira, Erbog Haunt is another new card for 3. It's a 3/2. She has Menace, and whenever she deals combat damage to a player, you get to return to the battlefield a target creature in your graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn. So, you know what? Even if they block, if she does combat and something dies, then it's fine. You bring some
The,
back.
yeah. The peregrine dynamo, it's a little legendary artifact creature construct that has haste. It's a 1/5. You can pay 1 and tap this and copy target activated or triggered ability you control from another legendary creature that's not a commander. You may choose new targets for the copy. So the reason this has haste as a 1/5 is because you want to be able to tap it right away and do that copying and silliness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then Varric Warped Singer, I don't know, whatever. Varric, for 1 and a white and a green, he's a legendary creature vampire, very ugly one. Is a 2/2. He does have flying, death touch, and lifelink though.
Nice.
And whenever you activate an ability that isn't a mana ability, like the one we just saw on the dynamo, if life was paid to activate it, so not like that one. You may pay that much life again. If you do copy that ability, you may choose new targets for the copy. Is there anything else that really has pay life?
Not a lot.
No, not
that I recall.
So there's not. That's weird that this was put in this deck though,
Yeah.
because it was kind of made
strange.
for this deck. But the nice thing about this one in this deck is if you have Audric out, the flying death touch and lifelink, now everything has
Right.
lifelink. But interestingly enough, it's really one of the only cards in this entire deck that has lifelink as well. So
Possible tweaking there.
possible tweaking possibilities there.
Yeah, yeah. So as far as land goes, this deck has the kind of typical Wizards ones where they're at 39. The formula calls for 34, so maybe there's some changes you can make there. Possibly. We like to play these decks first before, like a couple times before we start taking things out. Just try them, feel them out, see where it might be lacking. Like if you're finding that you're getting too much mana, take some of that mana out. But if you find that it's really not that big of a deal, maybe you leave them in, or maybe take out that card like that flying lifelink weird vampire guy. Maybe he doesn't do much for you.
Some of them I've played and I've been like, you know what, this doesn't need any tweaks at all. Like
Right?
maybe 1 or 2 cards.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Yeah, or you get a really
speaking
cool
of-
card that you might want to
Yeah.
play in somewhere. Oh, this is a good place to just jam it in there. So
Yeah. Speaking of tweaks, we are at
Yeah.
that time in
Yeah.
our show where we give you some ideas of how we would tweak this deck. Our first tweaks are
Our first and
basically
favorite.
we have a few suggestions in this category, but basically we're saying anything legendary that you love
right.
would be something that you would put in this deck.
Exactly.
Because it takes advantage of legendary, you can really make, as long as it's in the colors that are part of this deck, you can really make this deck into what you love to play. So Haunt of Hightower is one that we love to play, so we thought we would suggest it. For 4 and 2 black, it's a 3/3. It has flying and lifelink, which gets some lifelink in there.
Yeah, exactly.
When it attacks, your defending player has to discard a card, so you got some removal in there. And whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, like when they discard it, you get to put a 1/1 counter on Haunt of Hightower. So not only is he lifelink, he's getting bigger, and if he has some of the other buffs that legendary creatures or other creatures get, he's going to do some work for you.
Very much so. A Chroma Vision of Ixidor. This is a 5 and 2 white 6/6 flying angel that Leslie loves, with flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, all those keywords that you might want to have. At the beginning of each combat, until end of turn, each other creature you control gets +1/+1 if it has flying, +1/+1 if it has first strike, and so on, for all those lovely keywords that similar to the Odric thing. So that was kind of something we were looking for as well. So those cards that give us all those benefits that other cards have as well.
Yeah, and if Odric is out, then all of the cards have all of that, so they all get that many +1/+1s. Like,
Exactly.
It would be a great card. Yeah. Ariel Ariel, Knight
I
of
say
Wind,
Ariel. Yeah.
Ariel, Knight of Windgrace, for
Yeah.
2 and a black and a white. It's a 4/4 with vigilance. You can create a white knight for 3. It also has vigilance, or you can pay black and tap X untap knights you control to destroy target creature with power X or less. So you can use all those knights.
Yeah.
Remember, we made zombie knights and we had the Circle of Unity. So you might as
Yeah.
well use those knights, and plus she's legendary, so she helps your legendary stuff out.
Yeah. We just thought that was a really good little card, and it's not an expensive card to pick up if you want to try a
Yeah.
tweak. Then there's the Mirror Box, which is a newish card that came out with Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. It is a 3-cost artifact that says the legend rule does not apply to permanents you control. So then each legendary creature you control gets +1/+1, and each non-token creature you control gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control with the same name as that creature.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of copies would make those legendaries even bigger.
Yep. And another one that gets you the legend rule doesn't apply, and we will get to the reason why that matters in just a card or two here. Mirror Gallery would be another one. It costs 5. It's just an artifact, sits out there, says the legend rule doesn't apply. So if you lose that creature that gives you the legend rule doesn't apply, artifacts are a little bit harder to get rid of, so this would help you with that.
And then Mirror of the Forebears, it's a 2-mana cost artifact that says as it enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type. And you can pay 1 until end of turn. Mirror of the Forebear becomes a copy of target creature you control of the chosen type, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. So maybe you want to have that, the knights or something like that as those creature types that you want to copy. And you can copy Ariel or something like that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then that's why you
need
to have
those.
The legend rule doesn't apply.
Exactly.
Because all your creatures are legendary. This is another reason why you want the legend reel to not the true one. If you're going to put this in, you want to add the legend rule doesn't apply. Mirror March for 5 and a red is an enchantment, and whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get to flip a coin until you lose a flip. So I would just choose odd or even and roll and say odd is whatever the win. Right. For each flip you won, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Those tokens gain haste. You do exile them at the end of the turn, but basically it allows you to play a creature, make a whole bunch of copies of them, hopefully, and swing out with them right away. And if the legend rule doesn't apply, then it doesn't matter if they're legendary creatures or not.
Yeah. Then we have Heliod, God of the Sun, 5/6/3 and white legendary enchantment creature god that all those gods that people like to play. It's an indestructible, and as long as your devotion to white is less than 5, it's not a creature, but other creatures you control have vigilance, and you can pay 2 and 2 white to make a white cleric enchantment creature token on the battlefield. So little token generator. Giving your stuff vigilance is really nice to have.
Yeah, we were trying to think of things like other creatures have because of the theme that goes in this deck. And Dragon Lord Colgan is another one like that. It costs 6. It's a 6/5. It has flying and haste. Other creatures you control have haste. Whenever an opponent casts a creature or planeswalker spell with the same name as a card in his or her graveyard, that player loses 10 life. Irrelevant. Not going to happen in Commander very often, but giving all your other creatures haste is super important.
Unless they're playing Relentless Rats or something silly like that.
Oh, yeah. True.
You'll die. That's okay. Play that rat deck. I don't mind. Then Adeline Resplendent Cathar for 1 and 2 white is just one of those really good legendary creatures that you might want to try. It's a human knight, so if we were stuck on the knight theme, vigilance, and her power is equal to the number of creatures you control, so it could be really big. Whenever you attack for each opponent, you create a 1/1 white human that's tapped and attacking as well. So she's going to be big when you're attacking. It's whenever anything is attacking.
And Rabble Rousing is our last tweak for this time. It's 4 and a white. It's an enchantment that has Hideaway. So when this enchantment enters the battlefield, you get to look at the top 5 cards of your library, exile 1 face down, put the rest on the bottom of your library. So When you attack with one or more creatures, you get to create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. Then, if you control 10 or more creatures, you may play this exile card without paying its mana cost. So it's just a nice way to take advantage, we thought, of all of the extra tokens you're going to be getting. Also, if you want to go with that token theme, you might want to add this in to get the tokens. It is not a legendary enchantment, sadly,
No.
but
Yeah.
it will get you tokens if that's where you wanted to kind of try to go with this deck.
Yeah. So thank you. That's it for this time. Thanks a lot for watching. And you can find us on YouTube, obviously, and Twitch on Wednesdays. We're going to be playing with our friends, playing Commander with our friends. We'll probably display these decks, possibly, maybe, I don't know, in the future. Feel free to connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and anywhere, Instagram, all those socials. We'd love to hear what you would do with this deck, if you would tweak it, what kinds of things you would add. And that's it for this time. And we'll see you next time. And until then,
Tap those magic cards and have fun doing it. Bye, guys.
bye.